A German boy received his new uniform for the first time, but at the collar, he noticed another person's name. So he returned the uniform. The officer tore off the name tag.
It's yours.
Frank happily took the uniform and left, but he didn't notice the pile of name tags under the table. They had no idea that these so-called new uniforms had been worn by another group of young soldiers just days before. When those soldiers were killed in battle, their uniforms and shoes were stripped off, packed up, and sent back to the quartermaster depot. Women workers would wash away the blood, then tailors would mend the damaged areas. Finally, the old name tags would be cut off. Due to the sheer volume of uniforms, these tags were often overlooked. Then the new uniforms would be distributed to freshly graduated German recruits. Frank was thrilled and immediately put on the uniform. The next day, the new soldiers marched off to the battlefield singing songs, but their smiles quickly vanished. French artillery opened fire on the German troops. Frank hurriedly put on his gas mask. The recruits had just reached the trenches when they were forced to bail out the freezing water with their helmets. That night, Frank was sent to scout the front lines, but when a flare went up, the enemy launched a fierce bombardment. Frank quickly dove into a dugout. He was trembling all over and began to regret his decision to enlist. After that night, Frank survived by sheer luck, but the trenches were littered with the bodies of his classmates. He was ordered to collect the dog tags from the dead. Only then did he finally understand where his new uniform had come from. 3 years later, Frank had become a veteran. Facing the enemy's heavy fire, Frank was no longer afraid. He skillfully dodged French bullets. German soldiers quickly overran the enemy trenches. Frank even found the enemy command post. Just as he was enjoying some French cuisine, the table suddenly shook violently. Even the rats were scrambling to escape. Frank sensed something was wrong and immediately ran out to check. The sight before him stopped him in his tracks. Several enormous steel boxes were advancing toward them. Bullets were useless and failed to stop the tanks' advance. Soon, the tanks launched a devastating attack on the German forces. Frank could only huddle in the trench, trembling. But the massive tanks rolled over their trenches without mercy. The German soldiers completely fell apart. They scattered in panic and fled. After such a crushing defeat, the German government finally signed an armistice. Just when Frank thought he could finally go home, a general, to preserve his own honor, ordered an attack half an hour before the armistice took effect. By then, Frank was already numb. He was like a walking corpse, having lost his soul. In the end, Frank's name tag, just like those of the soldiers who had died 3 years earlier, was taken by a new recruit.